So Rick, you say business intelligence has not fulfilled its promise. Why hasn't it?
The challenge has always been to provide a single source of truth and have data available to users so that they could use it as they need to. BI has done neither of these things, even though we've worked hard towards that for the 20 years that we've had business intelligence technologies around. This has left a challenge and a gap that businesses filled by really reaching out and saying, just give us data and we'll do with it as we can on our own, this whole shadow IT complex. So we have a situation today where users are taking data, doing what they can with it, but it's still information silos. There is not a single source of truth that most corporations are using, if virtually any corporation is using. So that's resulted in users, as I said, doing their own thing.
If business people are selecting and using reporting and data visualization tools for themselves, isn't this user self-service? Why is it a problem?
Well, it's a problem because now business users, instead of doing the analysis and reaching the decisions and conclusions that they're striving for, they're spending time manipulating data. In fact, in much of the time, and one of our clients expressed it this way, it's often frustrating to get a report that the analysts have been working on to get out on deadline and find that they had so much time manipulating the data that they had no time to validate whether the report was meaningful or correct. That's the reverse of how they should be spending their time. So that's the first thing. And it really points to what I call the first and the major problem that BI has failed at. And that really is the timely delivery of information that business needs. Until this problem is solved, business people will continue to do what I consider to be IT work, manipulating and preparing data.
So Rick, in addition to that, what are the other challenges that BI has in terms of delivery?
That's a good question, because there I see four major challenges. The first, as I said, is the ability to deliver data to users that they're ready to be used in a timely fashion. The second is usability. That means the tools and the data itself being easy and understandable for business users to use. And this has resulted in a broad proliferation of tools and most business users using Excel and Access. The third problem is what I call execution, really developing the disciplines to deliver data effectively. And as I look at the history of BI, which is 20 years old at this point, the technologies have been around, evolved, have grown in capability, but most organizations do not have the ingrained disciplines and discipline management to really deliver data effectively. And then the fourth one is a budgetary or cost problem. These tools and technologies which came along with BI, with the invention and development of BI, are 20-year-old technologies, and they were premium priced technologies at the time, and they have stayed high cost, which means scaling them out to enterprise level in terms of licenses, in terms of training, in terms of support and those challenges is a very big budgetary obstacle.
So what are the primary obstacles to solving these data and analytic problems?
There are a lot, obviously, because the problem has remained unsolved for so long in most companies. So let's break them into categories. The first is understanding the nature of data itself, business data itself. The second is the process by which we do these data delivery projects. And the third major category is really the methods and tools by which we deliver. So let's look at those in turn. The nature of business data is that we use it all the time. Application systems are the backbone of every business. Doing transactions, accounting for transactions, the core business management of work. Unfortunately, application data is structured to support the application it serves, not to support broader-based analytic and enterprise information needs. So the first major obstacle is understanding that the application data has built-in limitations that need to be addressed to make an enterprise data and analytics solution.
So what is the process used for data delivery projects, and why is it a problem?
It stems from the view about business data that I just mentioned. Because applications are so central, it really strikes me that today most business users have a much better understanding of the physical data than most IT people. Not universally true, but very broadly true. And what this means is that users, when they're doing their shadow IT, are actually working from the application out. When IT gets involved, it's also working from the application out. I call this approach inside out. It's starting with the data and creating a solution for a specific need that is being addressed at the time, whether it's a reporting need or an analytic need. The problem with that is that it does not address what all this data use cases may be for that data. So there's a structured result that is physically tied to the reporting objects being produced and is therefore not extensible to new needs. It's much better as a process point of view for data delivery projects to really understand all of the data use cases, all the data use scenarios. Is data mining going to be done? Predictive analytics? Does the question of, I know what you can show me today data, show me what I knew 6 months ago, where later driving transactions may have changed the viewpoint from one period in time to another. Time and variance. These types of understandings do not come into play when people are only addressing one particular need for one particular user. So it's much better to start with an understanding of all the data use scenarios so that anything the business may want to do has been considered and the data has been structured and delivered to them to be able to do that.
So Rick, you mentioned methods and technologies. What type of problems do these create for business intelligence?
This is really interesting to me. I mentioned how we are doing data from the inside out, and that is a primary problem. But if we think about how the world operates today, we've all heard mobile first, interconnected, cloud, everything is available at the touch. That's a world of interaction. That's a world of a user saying, give me this now. So the whole idea of method is that we should be thinking in that way because analytics are going to have to be involved in that way. So it's really important to start to say, what is the user interaction that I am supporting here? Now that's a data use scenario, but it's also very precise in terms of, okay, I'm going to give you an account number and and ask for what is it likely that they're going to buy next. And okay, that's a very precise thing. You're going to give an account number and you want a collection of data to come back. That's very different in viewpoint and method than and it fulfills and continues the outside-in approach versus let's see what data we have and structure it and the users can go use it. So the paradigm is changing from one of data availability and the users will figure out how to use it to users are interacting with the data in a highly mobile and interactive way, and that's what we need to support, whether the users are inside our business, whether they're our customers, our suppliers, the ecosystem of organizations and that we are involved, that a company is involved in. So what this means from a technology point of view is the whole approach to business intelligence and service-oriented architecture, which is really driving down to very specific things, is now being disrupted. It's being disrupted with technologies like containers and interoperability and move to DevOps type of development, and BI technologies do not play in that space right now. So if we look at it from a technology perspective, what all of the major players are doing, and by that those that are leading in the mobile first world, is they are not continuing to use traditional or the long-lived BI tools as effective as they are for some of the budgetary reasons that I mentioned before. And so there's a move to look towards open source solutions that are scalable, solutions that are more mobile interactive, and ways of being able to define and apply technology better. So while users are very attracted to tools like ClickView, Tableau, those high visualization, high content tools, and I could name many others, and traditional tools like MicroStrategy and Cognos and Business Objects have been out there and developed as well as the Microsoft products. These tools are all trying to adapt to that space, but their architecture and structure is really evolved over 20 years and has some of those legacy impacts as well. So it's really interesting to see at this point in time, there is starting to be a fundamental shift around what these technologies can do. Some of it driven by big data type of technologies, some of it driven by data streaming and machine learning type of technologies. It's really a very changed world out there.
So you mentioned earlier the lack of data delivery effectiveness in IT. What disciplines need to be developed to support the mobile first view in analytics?
I'd emphasize three key ones. The first is to recognize that analytics are becoming instantaneous. So design with that in mind. It's much easier to deliver analytics slowly out of an instantaneous design than it is to deliver instantaneous analytics out of a batch design. So deliver for analytic speed. Second, support that with trustworthy data. This means be responsible for the data, be responsible for its correctness, its usability, enforcing all of the rules that are identified for the data so that business people and your users can trust it. That level of responsibility is definitely one that most organizations do not fulfill today. And then the third is a stewardship aspect. These are ongoing, evolving uses of data. So how do we develop an infrastructure that can adapt, that can change, that does not have to be set aside and rebuilt because now we have a new data use scenario we didn't consider before? So those are the three things: speed of analytics, trustworthy data development, and data stewardship.